What if self-development isn't just a buzzword on a motivational poster? What if it is literally, scientifically, psychologically, your greatest superpower? The one weapon that nobody can take from you, the one investment that never crashes, the one skill that multiplies every other skill you possess. Stay with me today, because by the end of this, you won't just think differently. You will never think the same way again. What if the most dangerous prison in the world has no bars, no guards, no walls, and you built it yourself brick by brick with every limiting belief you accepted as truth? I want to start there, right there, in that uncomfortable, slightly terrifying place. Because if we're going to talk about thinking like rich people, and I mean genuinely, deeply, transformatively rich, we cannot pretend that the journey begins anywhere other than inside you. Not in a boardroom, not in a business plan, not in a stock portfolio. It begins in the 6 inches between your ears and in the beating, vulnerable, beautifully complicated center of your chest. I have spent years studying what makes human beings rise, what makes some people look at the exact same circumstances, the exact same obstacles, the exact same brutal, unfair, messy world and choose to build something extraordinary from it, while others look at those same circumstances and simply, and here's what the research tells us, what the data screams at us, what thousands of people's stories have whispered to me in the dark. The difference is never the opportunity. The difference is always the inner work. What if I told you that every wealthy thinker, every person who has built something real and lasting and meaningful, made a decision at some point, a terrifying, gut-wrenching, soul-level decision to stop being comfortable and start being courageous? And the shocking truth is that courage doesn't look like a lion roaring on a mountaintop. Real courage, the kind that changes your life, looks like sitting with your own discomfort and not running away. It looks like saying, I don't know everything, and that is my greatest starting point. It looks like choosing growth over the warm, suffocating blanket of staying exactly where you are. Here's what nobody tells you about rich people, the ones who genuinely think differently, who move through the world with that quiet, unshakable confidence. They have made friends with vulnerability. And I know that word makes some of you want to close this video right now. I know it does. Because we have been taught by our families, by our cultures, by every message society sends us, that vulnerability is weakness. That showing up uncertain, unfinished, still in progress is something to be ashamed of. But what if that is the greatest lie ever told to keep average people average? The research is devastating in the most beautiful way. The people who dare greatly, who step into the arena of their own potential without guarantees, without certainty, without a safety net, those are the people who create wealth. Not just financial wealth, but the kind of wealth that actually matters. Rich relationships, rich purpose, rich inner lives. They don't wait until they feel ready, because here's the shocking secret. Nobody ever feels ready. Rich thinkers simply decide that their dream is more important than their fear. What if shame is the real poverty? Not the lack of money, but the shame that tells you that you are not smart enough, not qualified enough, not born into the right family, not the right color, not the right gender, not from the right neighborhood. Shame is the invisible tax that poor thinking collects from us every single day, and it compounds just like interest, but in the wrong direction. Every time you accept a shame narrative about yourself, you pay a price. You shrink a little, you reach a little less, you dream a little smaller. And one day you wake up and you can't even remember what the original dream felt like. Rich thinkers, people who have genuinely mastered the art of self-development, they have learned to separate their self-worth from every external measure of success. They have learned through practice and pain and profound inner work that their value as a human being is not negotiable. It is not up for debate. It does not go up when they close a deal and down when they lose one. Their worth is non-negotiable, and that is not arrogance. That is the foundation upon which every extraordinary life is built. You cannot build a skyscraper on a cracked foundation, and you cannot build an extraordinary life while secretly believing you don't deserve one. Now let's talk about stories, because this is where it gets genuinely shocking. You are living inside a story right now. Every single one of us is. And that story, the one about who you are, what you deserve, what is possible for you, what people like you are capable of, that story is either building your future or dismantling it. Brick by brick, thought by thought, day by day, rich thinkers are ruthless story editors. They catch themselves in the middle of a limiting narrative and they say out loud, with the full force of their will, that is not my story anymore. They rewrite, they revise. They refuse to live in the first draft of their potential. What if the most powerful sentence you could ever speak is, the story I'm telling myself might be wrong? What if that one sentence, that one crack of light in the closed room of your assumptions is the beginning of everything? Because the moment you question your own narrative, you create space. Space for new information, space for new possibilities, space for the version of you that has been waiting patiently, just on the other side of your most comfortable beliefs. Self-development is not a luxury. I need you to hear that with every cell in your body. It is not something you do when you have extra time, extra money, extra energy. It is the investment, the foundational, non-negotiable, everything depends on this investment that determines the trajectory of your entire existence. Rich thinkers don't treat learning as optional. They treat it as oxygen. They read when they're tired. They seek mentors when they're proud. They ask hard questions when it would be easier to stay comfortable in their certainty, because they understand something that took me a long time to fully grasp. You cannot pour from an empty cup, but you also cannot pour from a cup you've never bothered to fill. And here's what I think is the most underrated superpower in the entire conversation about wealth and success: belonging. Not fitting in. I want to draw a very sharp, very important line between those two things. Fitting in is changing who you are to match your environment. Belonging is finding or building the environment that celebrates who you actually are. Rich thinkers build tribes. They cultivate deep, genuine, reciprocal relationships with other people who challenge them, believe in them, and refuse to let them stay small. They know intuitively, experientially, in their bones, that isolation is the enemy of elevation, that you cannot rise alone, that every great human achievement in history was a collective act, even when it looked like a solo performance. What if you started treating your mind the way rich people treat their most valuable investments? With care, with consistency, with patience, with the understanding that the returns don't always come immediately, but they always, always come. What if you committed, starting today, to 1 hour a day of intentional self-development? 1 book a week, 1 hard conversation you've been avoiding, 1 uncomfortable challenge you've been circling like a plane that won't land. What if you decided right now, in this moment, that your growth is not negotiable? Because here's what I know to be absolutely unshakably true: the people who change the world, who build the businesses, who raise the children, who change history, who create the art that moves generations, they are not exceptional in the way we think. They are not smarter, luckier, or more gifted than you. They simply made a decision, often in a quiet, private, unremarkable moment, to bet on themselves, to believe that their becoming was worth the discomfort of growth, to choose courage over comfort every single day, even when, especially when they were terrified. You have that same choice right now, in this moment. The question is not whether you are capable. The only question that has ever mattered is whether you are willing. So let me bring this home, because I want you to leave here different than you arrived, not just motivated. I don't want you motivated. Motivation fades. I want you convicted. I want you to feel in the deepest part of your being that you are sitting on a superpower that you have been chronically underusing. Thinking like rich people has nothing to do with money as a starting point. It has everything to do with the courage to be vulnerable enough to grow, the wisdom to rewrite your story, the discipline to invest in yourself daily, the clarity to separate your worth from your circumstances, and the connection to build a community that elevates you. These are not gifts you're born with. They are practices you build, one intentional, courageous, sometimes messy decision at a time. Your self-development is not selfish. It is your greatest contribution to the world, because when you grow, everyone around you feels it. When you rise, you extend your hand to pull someone else up. When you heal your stories, your children inherit different ones. When you dare greatly, you give others permission to do the same. The world does not need more perfect people. It needs more whole people, people who show up fully, who love fiercely, who fail forward, and who never ever stop becoming. That is the richest way to live, and it is available to you right now, exactly as you are.